Have you noticed the more you try to stop thinking, the louder your mind gets? What if peace doesn't come from silence, but from seeing your thoughts differently? Have you ever felt trapped in your own mind, like every thought only leads to more worry, doubt, or self-criticism? It's like standing in front of an open door, yet choosing to stay in the cage. I used to live there too. My mind never stopped. An endless stream of what ifs, I should have, and why can't I just be at peace? But everything began to change when I discovered something ancient and astonishingly simple. 5 Buddhist practices that help you break the cycle of overthinking. These aren't mystical rituals or distant philosophies. They are gentle, practical ways to pause, to see clearly, and to come back home to your breath. In Buddhism, the mind is compared to a monkey jumping from branch to branch, restless and noisy. But when we learn to simply observe that monkey instead of fighting it, a quiet strength appears. That's where peace begins, not from controlling every thought, but from no longer being controlled by them. Each of these 5 practices is like a key to open the cage of self-criticism, a key to stop spiraling thoughts before they take over, a key to breathe again fully in this very moment. Over the years, I learned that peace isn't something you achieve. It's something you remember. It's been there all along, under the noise, beneath the worry. When you practice mindfulness the Buddhist way, you don't escape life. You awaken to it. So if your mind feels heavy today, stay with me. Because what we're about to explore may not just quiet your thoughts, it may finally set them free. Let's move to the first part of today's video. The monkey mind, seeing overthinking through the lens of Buddhist wisdom. In Buddhism, what we call overthinking is known as vitakka vikara, the restless movement of an untrained mind. The Buddha compared it to a wild monkey, leaping from branch to branch, never resting, never satisfied. If you've ever tried to quiet your thoughts only to find them multiplying, you already know this monkey. It lives inside all of us. But Buddhism teaches something revolutionary. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that sees them, the silent witness standing behind the noise. And the moment you truly realize this, even for a breath, the storm inside begins to settle. Think about how often we suffer, not because of reality itself, but because of the way our mind interprets it. We fall into 3 subtle patterns of thinking, each one a trap built by the mind itself. First, the comparing mind. It whispers, they're doing better than you. You're behind. This constant measuring robs us of joy. It turns life into a race with no finish line. And then there's the narrative-building mind, the storyteller within us. It takes one small moment and builds an entire world of assumptions and fears. Someone forgets to reply to your message, and suddenly you've written a whole story of rejection. Finally, the controlling mind, the part that believes if I think more, I'll stay safe. But overthinking is not control, it's resistance, a refusal to flow with life. The truth is, no amount of thinking can protect us from uncertainty. So what does Buddhism suggest? Not fighting your thoughts, not drowning in them either. Instead, observe them, like waves rising and falling on the surface of the ocean. You don't have to stop the waves to experience peace. You only need to realize you are the ocean, not the wave. When you stop clinging, when you stop pushing away, thoughts lose their power. They appear and dissolve. Peace was never lost. It was only hidden beneath the noise. Overthinking ends not by force, but by understanding. When we become the observer, calm, spacious, aware, the monkey finally rests. And in that stillness, we rediscover something the world can't give or take away, the quiet freedom of a mind at peace. Sometimes, when you finally recognize your own monkey mind, that restless chatter that never stops, a deeper question arises. If I'm not my thoughts, then why do they still have so much power over me? That's where we'll go next in today's video, into the hidden roots of suffering, what Buddhism teaches about our inner struggle. In Buddhism, the real problem has never been about thinking too much. The mind was born to think, just as the heart was born to beat. Thoughts arise naturally, like clouds forming in the sky. They are not the enemy. The true cause of suffering lies in how we relate to those thoughts. Most people don't just observe a thought, they believe it. They hold on to every story the mind creates as if it were an absolute truth. When the mind says, "I'm not enough," we suffer as if it's a fact carved into stone. When it whispers, "They don't like me," we tighten up, defend, and lose our peace. The Buddha called this attachment and aversion, clinging to what we want and resisting what we don't. This is the engine of suffering. Every time we grasp at what feels pleasant or push away what feels painful, we're fighting with the reality of life itself. Imagine trying to stop the ocean waves with your hands. The harder you fight, the more exhausted you become. Thoughts work the same way. The more we resist them, the stronger they seem to grow. The Buddhist path invites us to do something radical, to stop fighting, to see thoughts for what they really are, impermanent phenomena like passing weather. When anger rises, it's just a storm. When anxiety comes, it's a gust of wind. When self-doubt appears, it's a passing cloud. No weather lasts forever, and neither do thoughts. You don't have to chase the good ones or destroy the bad ones. You simply stand still and watch. This act of observation, pure, gentle awareness, is the first step to freedom. It's like sitting on the riverbank, watching leaves float by, rather than being swept away by the current. When you stop reacting to every thought, the mind begins to soften. You start noticing space between you and the noise in your head. In that quiet space, peace is born, not because the mind has stopped talking, but because you no longer mistake its voice for who you are. This is what Buddhist masters mean when they say, "You are not the storm, you are the sky." The sky does not fight the storm. It allows it, embraces it, and remains untouched. So next time your mind begins to spin, pause for a moment and simply notice, here's that old thought again. No judgment, no resistance, just awareness. That awareness is not weak, it's power in its purest form. Because the moment you recognize a thought as just a thought, it loses its control over you. Peace isn't found by silencing the mind. It's found by befriending it, by becoming the vast stillness that holds it all. And in that stillness, suffering begins to dissolve, like mist fading in the morning sun. As we begin to understand that peace comes not from silencing the mind, but from befriending it, a natural question arises. How do we actually do that in daily life? How can we move from simply knowing this truth to living it? That's where practice begins. Gentle, consistent, and transformative. To help you experience this shift, we will now move into the next part. 5 Buddhist practices to break the cycle of overthinking. Part 3, 5 Buddhist practices to break the cycle of overthinking. Practice 1, the thought labeling technique. This method comes from Satipatthana, the foundation of mindfulness in Buddhist teachings. It's designed to help you see thoughts clearly without getting lost in them. Purpose: to create space between you and the constant flow of thoughts. Step-by-step guidance. Recognize when you're thinking. The moment you notice, "I'm thinking," you've already stepped out of the stream of thought. Label the type of thought: worrying, judging, planning, comparing, remembering. You don't need to analyze, just name it softly, like whispering to a friend. Observe without interference. Don't try to change, suppress, or follow the thought. Simply witness its movement. Return to the present moment. Feel your breath, your body, or the sounds around you. Each time you return, you strengthen awareness. Repeat with compassion. Some thoughts will keep returning. That's okay. Label them again, gently. The point isn't to stop thinking, but to see clearly what is happening. Effect: this technique breaks the automatic chain of reactions that fuels anxiety and rumination. When you label thoughts, you create a moment of awareness, a pause where wisdom can enter. Instead of being swept away by the mind's stories, you begin to see them as passing clouds. You no longer identify as the storm. You become the open sky that holds it all. With regular practice, labeling your thoughts transforms mental chaos into calm clarity. You'll notice that thoughts still arise, but they no longer control your mood or dictate your day. Over time, this practice rewires your brain to respond, not react. The noise doesn't disappear, but your relationship with it changes. And in that quiet shift, freedom begins. When you learn to label your thoughts without judgment, a gentle awareness begins to grow. You start to see the constant chatter of the mind as movements, not commands. But awareness alone is not the end of the journey. To truly transform your relationship with thinking, you must understand one of the most profound truths in Buddhist wisdom. Everything is impermanent. So now let's move to the next part. Practice 2. The impermanence of thoughts. This practice is rooted in the Buddhist principle of anicca, or impermanence. It teaches us that every experience, including every thought, arises, changes, and fades away. When we forget this truth, we suffer. We believe a negative thought defines who we are. But when we remember impermanence, we begin to see no thought lasts forever. Each thought is just a visitor, passing through the space of your awareness. Some stay for a moment, others linger longer, but all eventually dissolve into silence. Steps to practice. Sit quietly and observe your thoughts. You don't need to stop them or control them. Just watch, like clouds moving across the sky. Do not avoid or chase them. Notice how each thought naturally arises and fades. Don't judge whether it's good or bad. Just let it be what it is, a temporary event. Notice the rhythm of each thought. Some thoughts are strong and emotional, others are faint and fleeting. Observe the wave-like motion, appearing, peaking, and dissolving. See how they fade when not fed. When you stop reacting, stop fueling them with fear, blame, or analysis. The thought loses energy. It weakens and disappears by itself. Feel the stillness between thoughts. Between one thought ending and another arising, there's a quiet space, open and clear. That space is you, your true awareness, not the thoughts that pass through it. Application in daily life. Whenever you catch yourself stuck in a loop, anxiety, regret, or self-criticism, pause and whisper to yourself, "This thought is temporary, it will pass." Repeat it softly like a mantra. This gentle reminder instantly changes your perspective. Instead of drowning in the storm, you realize you are the sky. Over time, this practice weakens the grip of negative thinking. You begin to see that thoughts have no real substance. They come and go like waves, while your awareness remains untouched, calm, and vast. This is not about suppressing your mind, but about understanding its nature. When you truly see impermanence, every emotion, fear, or craving becomes lighter. You no longer cling to them because you know they too shall pass. And in that recognition, freedom quietly dawns. When you begin to see your thoughts as impermanent, rising and fading like waves, something shifts inside you. You no longer fear the noise of your mind because you know it will pass. Yet there is one voice that tends to stay longer, speaking louder than all others, the inner critic. That harsh whisper that says, "You're not enough. You failed again." So now we move to the next part of our journey. Practice 3, turning the inner critic into an inner friend. Every person has an inner critic, that mental voice that points out flaws, mistakes, and shortcomings. It often begins as a protective instinct, a part of us trying to keep us safe from failure or rejection. But over time, it becomes harsh, unforgiving, and cruel. Buddhist psychology teaches that this voice isn't our enemy. It's a wounded part of our own consciousness, asking for understanding, not punishment. Self-compassion, or metta toward oneself, is the medicine. When we learn to respond to inner criticism with kindness instead of resistance, the tone of our inner world begins to change. Steps to practice. Recognize the inner critic's voice. Pause and listen. What does it say? "You're not good enough. You always mess things up." Simply notice these phrases as mental events, not absolute truths. See the pain behind the criticism. Instead of fighting the voice, ask softly, "What are you really afraid of?" Most of the time, it's fear of rejection, shame, or the need to be loved. Recognizing this transforms judgment into empathy. Respond with gentle kindness. Speak to yourself as you would to a close friend. It's okay. I'm still learning. I made a mistake, but I'm still worthy. The way you talk to yourself shapes the way you heal. Reframe failure as feedback. The Buddha taught that growth comes through awareness, not punishment. When you view every mistake as a teacher instead of an enemy, your critic becomes your ally, guiding you, not hurting you. Anchor in self-compassion daily. Each morning, place your hand on your heart and remind yourself, may I be kind to myself today. Small rituals like this gradually rewire the mind toward warmth and acceptance, result in transformation. This practice is not about silencing the inner critic. It's about transforming its energy into something more helpful. Over time, that once harsh voice softens. It becomes an inner friend, reminding you to rest, to forgive, to try again tomorrow. As you practice, you'll notice a profound shift. Your inner dialogue becomes less about, what's wrong with me? And more about, what does this part of me need right now? And in that shift lies healing. Because compassion is not weakness. It is the courage to stay open-hearted, even when the mind turns against itself. When you meet your inner critic with love, you reclaim your peace. You stop being your own enemy and begin walking the path of true understanding. When you begin to treat your inner critic with compassion, something beautiful happens. The mind softens. It no longer needs to shout to be heard. But now a deeper challenge appears. The subtle waves of thoughts, emotions, and memories that keep floating up every moment. To stay awake in the middle of this endless flow, we need a way to see clearly, without judging or clinging. That's why we'll now move into the next practice. Practice 4, the mental noting technique. This practice comes from Vipassana, or insight meditation, one of the oldest and most profound teachings of the Buddha. It trains us to observe the mind with bare attention, awareness untouched by reaction, opinion, or judgment. In daily life, our mind constantly jumps between thoughts, feelings, and memories, like a radio scanning through endless channels. The mental noting technique helps us notice what's happening in real time, so we don't get trapped in the noise. How to practice. Establish the inner observer. Sit quietly and bring your awareness inward. Imagine there's a calm, steady observer within you, just watching everything arise and pass. Observe whatever appears. Thoughts, emotions, sensations, images, memories. Everything is allowed to be seen. Don't choose or control what arises. Just notice it. Gently label the mental activity. Use short, simple words like thinking, remembering, judging, imagining, doubting. Label softly in your mind, like writing a note on water. Avoid analyzing or explaining. The goal isn't to figure out why something appeared, but simply to see that it did. This keeps awareness pure, clean, and unentangled. Notice mental patterns. Over time, you'll begin to recognize familiar loops. The same worries, the same judgments. Awareness brings freedom. When you see the pattern, you're no longer trapped by it. Bring this practice into daily life. When your mind spins during work, traffic, or conversations, mentally note planning, comparing, fearing. Each label pulls you out of unconscious reaction and back into conscious presence. The deeper impact. Mental noting cultivates what psychology today calls metacognitive awareness, the ability to be aware of your own thinking. It's like stepping out of the movie of your mind and watching it from the audience. You begin to realize you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that notices them. When this understanding deepens, even turbulent emotions lose their grip. You can feel anger without being anger. You can witness sadness without drowning in it. This is where clarity is born. A clarity that's not cold or detached, but luminous and compassionate. Each time you label a thought and return to awareness, you reclaim a piece of your freedom. Instead of being swept away by the current of the mind, you start to float, peacefully, consciously, awake. That is the heart of Vipassana. Not escaping life, but seeing life as it truly is. After practicing mental noting, you've learned to observe the movement of the mind, to see thoughts as clouds passing through the open sky of awareness. But sometimes, even when we see the storm coming, it still pulls us in. The mind starts spinning with fear, regret, or overthinking before we even notice. In those moments, what we need is a gentle break, a way to pause, breathe, and come back to clarity. That's where practice 5, the pause and see method comes in, rooted in the Buddhist principle of right effort, Chan Tin Tan. This method is not about forcing or suppressing the mind. It's about directing energy wisely, not too tight, not too loose, like tuning a musical instrument until it sings in harmony. The pause and see method gives us a clear, simple framework to apply mindfulness in the middle of everyday chaos. Whenever your mind gets caught in loops, anxiety about the future, guilt about the past, fear of judgment, or self-doubt, you can use the 5 steps of PAUZ. The 5 steps, PAUZ. P, pause. The first step is simply to notice when you're trapped in a mental loop and gently stop. Not by pushing the thought away, but by creating a tiny space of awareness around it. This pause is like pressing the slow motion button in your mind. A, attune. Bring your attention back to your breath. Feel the rise and fall of your chest, the rhythm of air entering and leaving the body. Reconnect with the present moment, the weight of your feet on the ground, the air on your skin. This step brings you home to your body. You understand. Now look beneath the thought. What emotion is fueling it? Fear, shame, worry, anger? Naming the feeling, I feel anxious, I feel not enough, turns confusion into clarity. When you understand the emotion, it starts to soften. S, shift. Gently redirect your attention. Move your body, stand up, wash your hands, or focus on a simple task. This is not avoidance. It's recentering. By shifting attention, you break the momentum of mental rumination. E, engage. Finally act with clear and compassionate intention. Respond instead of reacting. Speak kindly. Take one small step forward, or simply breathe with awareness. This is conscious living, choosing wisdom over habit, applying it in daily life. You can use the PAUZ method anytime your thoughts spiral. When you're worried about the future, pause and breathe into the body. When you regret the past, understand the lesson but release the guilt. When you judge yourself, shift attention to a small act of kindness. When you fear being criticized, engage from calmness, not defense. Each time you practice, you strengthen the muscle of mindfulness. You're training the brain to create a moment of space before reacting, and in that space lies freedom. The inner transformation. The real power of this method lies in what happens inside. You stop being a prisoner of thought and become a conscious participant in your own mind. Instead of drowning in stories, you see them forming and choose how to respond. You begin to realize you don't have to believe every thought. You can pause, observe, and act from clarity. That's what right effort truly means. Not struggling to control the mind, but gently guiding it toward awareness, kindness, and wise action. Through repeated practice, this pause becomes natural. It turns into a doorway back to presence, a breath-long sanctuary of peace within the storm. We'll move into the next part of today's video. Nurturing inner peace from within. Peace doesn't come from forcing thoughts to stop. It comes from changing the way we relate to them. Thoughts are not enemies. They're echoes of an unsettled heart. When we stop resisting, the mind settles on its own, like muddy water clearing when left still. Return to your breath. Feel it move through your body. Simple, steady, real. Each breath brings you back to now. The body anchors you when the mind wanders. This is mindfulness, awareness rooted in presence. Let go of control. The more we try to control life, the more we suffer. Everything changes. That's the law of impermanence. Peace comes not from mastering the world, but from trusting its rhythm. Let things unfold without fighting. Trust the process. Even when you don't understand why, trust that life has its own timing. Every season knows when to arrive and when to end. Clarity grows in silence, not in endless thinking. Practice loving kindness. When the mind turns harsh, soften it with compassion. Whisper, "May I be peaceful," May I be free from fear. May I live with ease. Then send that same wish to others. Love dissolves tension, heals the inner storm, and brings light back to the heart. You are not broken, only covered in noise. When you stop resisting, breathe, trust, and love, peace reveals itself. It was never gone, only forgotten. You don't need to meditate for hours to awaken. Sometimes it only takes a single conscious breath, a moment of awareness in the middle of chaos, to return home to yourself. Each time you choose presence over panic, compassion over judgment, understanding over reaction, you are practicing the essence of the Buddha's path. Real practice isn't about escaping life. It's about meeting it fully with a gentle heart and a clear mind. That's where freedom begins. So tonight, as you finish this video, pause for a breath. Feel the air move in and out. Simple, sacred, alive. Right here, in this ordinary moment, you are already enough. Let this awareness be your teacher. Let kindness be your daily prayer. And let every breath remind you, peace is not a destination, it's your true nature. If something in this video touched your heart, share one word that describes how you feel right now. Peace, gratitude, awakening, or maybe just here. Let's fill the comments with quiet light, a space where mindfulness meets humanity. And if your heart wishes to keep walking this path, subscribe, stay close, because in the next videos we'll keep exploring how to live awake with grace, compassion, and an unshakable peace within.